Welcome to the journey of an aesthete, a comprehensive examination of all things aesthetic, the arts, the humanities, and what it means to be human.
Hello, is this Ellen Burstyn?
It is.
Ellen Burstyn, welcome to our podcast, Journey of an Aesthete.
Thank you very much.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. I really trying to be very, hold myself together. It's such an honor to have you on our show. And typically in these kinds of episodes, I do a little introduction.
Okay.
And so what I'm going to say is that I've had other actors on the show. I had Austin Pendleton on, and I had Melanie Mayron on the show. Actually, it was Mel that put me in touch with you, so I thank her immensely for that.
That's nice.
But I think it's a very rare thing. I think there are certain people in the arts that are special, and they burst into the world spiritually, and they make an impact. And I have to say, in a way, I grew up with you.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, because not only did I see The Exorcist as a child on the big screen, as a child in the 70s, but I also watched you in Providence, Alan Rene's film.
Oh, yeah.
And get this, I actually saw you with Charles Grodin in Same Time Next Year, and then I got to see you with Alan Alda do the same script on the screen. So I feel like I've grown up with your art and with your craft. And I'm very impressed with your spirituality. And it sounds like you have a friendly companion over there.
Yeah, and I have to find out why she's barking in the other room. She doesn't normally bark like that. So
okay.
I don't know what's the matter. Let me see. I'm going in the other room. What is it you're barking about? What? No. Come on out here. She's a puppy. Come, honey. I don't quite understand this maneuver here, but I'm going to pick up her bone and hope that she comes with me. Yeah. Okay. She wanted her bone. I don't know why she couldn't get it herself, but okay.
That's fantastic. Well,
yeah. So I interrupted you.
No, not at all. What I was going to say is that I feel like I sort of, I have to say that once a year I watch 2 of your films.
Really?
I watch Resurrection every Christmas because I think it's that good a film. And I watch The Exorcist every Halloween. And that's not, and actually last night, you know what I watched? This might bring back memories. Do you remember Thursday's Game that Jim Brooks wrote?
Oh, yeah, I do.
I watched that last night for, I don't know, I hadn't seen it since the 70s. It was such a treat. But anyhow, that's my introduction. And basically on our show, we do sort of a linear chronology, which is a fancy way of saying personal biography, where you would talk about Lee Strasberg and Jackie Gleason and all that. And
wait a minute, I've got to find out what this problem is. I have no idea. She's never done this before.
Oh,
so obviously something in the bathroom that she thinks. Okay, I'm closing the bathroom door. There. Now, whatever your problem is, yeah. Okay. I don't know what to do with her.
Our producer of the show has a golden retriever, and so he knows all about dogs and dog-related things. But I wanted to say that nonlinear things will start to happen once you have the framework of personal bio and whatever comes into your consciousness, or whatever you want to talk about, anything of your career or Lee Strasberg or Charles Grodin or whatever comes to your mind. You have a lot to say, and I'm very impressed with your spiritual dimension as well, which you talk about in your memoir, because I think that's important. And on our show, we're unafraid of talking about such matters of faith and matters of the kind. So if you want to talk about those things, you're certainly more than welcome to.
Wow, that's a big, wide canvas you've given me. Let me see what comes to mind. Well, I think I'll talk about Resurrection. You know, not too many people saw it, not as many as I would like.
Yep.
Because it was a very important film for me.
Yep.
I was in Greece making a film with Milena McCurry based on a Medea theme. And my agent called and said the producers wanted to do a film, Jesus Christ Comes Back to Earth as a Woman. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Send me the script. And they did. And it was not interesting to me the way it was written. And so I said no. Then the producer said they wanted to come talk to me. So the producers flew over to Greece and we met, and they wanted to talk me into it. And I said, well, you know, it's not about anything. It says it's about Jesus Christ comes back to earth as a woman. But then what? You know, she goes to Jerusalem and starts having this stigmata in her hands. But there's no message. There's no point of view. So I then roughly sketched out the story as it ended up in the film. And the director was there, and he said, well, that's a very nice story, but we have a go ahead from Universal to make this story. And I said, well, I don't want to do it. And they left. And then the producers got back to their hotel in Athens and called me and said, we like your story better than our story. Can we start over with a new writer and a new director? And I said, fine. So we did. And I worked with the writer. And I really, at the time, was very, my dog has just gone into crazy dog, which is she runs through the apartment a million miles an hour. I was very interested in the fact that it was just kind of coming into the consciousness that when people die and are resuscitated, they have a tale to tell of what happened while they were clinically dead, and everybody had the same kind of story of going through a tunnel of light and being met by friendly people there that were guiding them on. And that story was told so many times, and there were a couple of wonderful books written about it. So I thought that would be interesting to bring. And the other thing was healing. I had some experiences with healing that were remarkable, and I wanted to bring that forward. So we built the script around that.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, when the studio released it, they had they had algorithms, and there were 8 categories of films, and it didn't fit into any of the categories. So they took a supernatural film and released it with a horror film program, which was not very helpful. So it didn't get seen by very many people. But I know, I said to Brujoy, who was one of the doctors that I studied healing with in preparation for it, before it came out, after it was shot and it was due to come out, I said, he was very psychic, is it going to be successful? And he paused for a minute and he said, not in the way that you would expect, but it will later on. Well, it turns out that there's a whole group of people in the world, you're one of them.
That's right.
Who knows that film and was affected by it and cherish it. A lot of people have told me how it changed their life, it changed their direction in life. So whenever somebody comes up to me on the street and says something about resurrection, I always say to them, well, I know that you must be a very special person because all the people who relate to that film are. So you must be a very special person too.
Well, I don't know about that. I just love the film. And I wanted to mention 2 people because I think sometimes Louis John Carlino and Daniel Petrie are both so good. A lot of people don't know the name Daniel Petrie. What do you have to say about them as writers or directors on that film? They're both terrific.
Well, Louis and I worked very closely together on the script. As a matter of fact, there's a very funny story. I was shooting same time next year, or about to shoot same time next year with Ellen Burstyn, and we were in Northern California where we ended up, where we shot the film. And we just got there, and we didn't know each other, and we were going to start shooting in a couple of days. And Louis John Carlino, having heard I was in California, asked if he could come and meet me and we could talk about resurrection. So we had a date on, I think, Sunday for him to come. And on Saturday, Alan Alda and I got together and said, we're supposed to be in love on Monday and we don't know each other. What do we do?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I think the quickest way for us to really get to know each other is to get drunk together. I would not say that now, but at the time I did. Yeah. So we decided to go out and get drunk together, and we did. And we had a great time, and we stayed up very late, and I woke up in the morning with the worst hangover I've ever had in my life. And Louis John Carlino came to my room, which was at ground level and had a sliding glass door. And he knocked on the door and I didn't hear it. I was asleep. And then he came and knocked on the sliding glass door and I heard it. And I crawled over to it and opened the door. And I said, okay, I have a terrible hangover. I purposely got drunk and I'm suffering from it. So you can talk to me, but I have to lie down in bed. So I was lying down and he was sitting in a chair. And then we started talking about this very spiritual movie we wanted to make and this very spiritual woman that we were creating. And there I was with a hangover. I couldn't even sit up straight.
Yeah.
So that's the backstory.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, I if you don't mind me asking some questions, because you had done, I think Same Time Next Year is a wonderful play, and actually a very profound play and very well written. And you had the opportunity to do that with Charles Grodin as well. who just passed, as you know. And I'm wondering about the differences in style from Herbert Ross and Gene Saks. And is that too big of a question? I'm just wondering that you've been in these the same text, but two different versions of different stars.
Well, Charles Grodin is one of the funniest people I ever met in my life. And he has a kind of humor that it's unlike anybody else. He was very eccentric. He was a germaphobe. So there were just 1,000 ways to tease him, which I did constantly. We had a really wonderful time together. I loved being on stage with him. It was always a surprise. It was always new every night. I didn't know what would happen on stage because it was so alive.
Wow.
And we were really very close. And then he did this amazing thing. When the studio bought the play, they wanted me, but they didn't want Charles. They didn't think he was a big enough name for a movie star. So they hired Alan. And Charles was shocked that they didn't take him because we had gotten such great reviews and he was so praised. So he did something he went on a talk show. Now, I can't remember who the host was at the time, Johnny Carson.
I remember that.
And he set it up so that he had Johnny Carson tell him on the air that the movie was going to be made with Ellen Alda, and he pretended like he didn't know. It was so hilarious. I don't know any other actor in the world that would have done that. Really? They're not good. Why would they not use me? And then he started quoting all the quotes from our opening. There was one critic who wrote "Hats in the Air," a really great new play. So, and Charles all the way through the run would say that, "Hats in the air. We were pretty good tonight."
Wow.
So that's what he told on the show, and it was just hilarious. I mean, if you knew Charles and the way he could act totally shocked and mystified that such a thing could happen, it was hilariously funny, and it was also heartbreaking for me because I knew that he probably did feel that way. Really, he was making it be funny.
Well, I hope I'm not changing the subject, move around too much, but you did mention Same Time Next Year, and we should get back to Resurrection, of course, because it's an important film. And so so go ahead in terms of how you worked on that. You wrote that script with Louis John, and then Daniel Petrie came in. And so talk a little more about that process. Is remarkable to me, making something like that.
Now, we're talking 60 years ago, is that possible? 40 years ago. It's in the late 1970s.
Yeah.
80s, 90s, 10s. Yeah, I would say 40 years ago.
40, yeah.
So, yeah. Dan Petrie was a wonderful man. I liked him very much, a very kind man. And, you know, Louis and I developed the script together. I mean, he wrote it, but we talked through it a lot. And he loved my original name. You know, my name when I was born was Edna Ray Galooly. So he took my name, Edna, and gave it to the character.
Yeah.
And then it was just kind of one of those magical experiences. I don't know if you remember, Ralph Roberts was in it.
Yes. He's a wonderful
Ralph was my masseur. And he was also the masseur of Marilyn Monroe and Lee Strasberg and Toscanini. So I always heard great stories on the table about all of those people. And he was very extremely sensitive man. And he couldn't really handle the business, although he was a wonderful actor, but he wasn't somebody who could audition or, go into an office and go through that process. He was very shy. So I was thrilled to be able to give him that opportunity to play that character that he did so brilliantly. And Eva Le Gallienne, was, that's her only film role.
Yeah.
And she had her own theater company in New York.
Wow.
At one time, and she was considered the leading stage actress of New York. But she had never been on film. And she was then in her late 80s. And I met with her and we had lunch and I asked her to play my grandmother.
Yeah.
She had written a book about Eleanor Duse, the great Italian actress, which I read.
Wow.
And I had her sign it for me. So when I had an opportunity to put her in a movie, I did. And I'm so glad I did because she was so brilliant. She has one moment. We have one moment in the film where I'm saying goodbye to her. And, I'm leaving and I probably won't see her again. And I can't remember the exact dialogue, but I say something referring to Jesus and love. I don't remember my cue, but her line was, "That's just it, isn't it? If we could just love each other the way we say we love him." And every time she said it, it was like she dropped her voice into her heart on the word love. And every time tears shot out of my eyes. It was so moving. I just treasure that moment with her looking into her face.
It's funny to hear you mention that because I get teary in that same moment, in the same line, the line delivery you mean. And it's, I do think it's a lot of things coming together. I think it's the script as well as you folks acting and as well as the direction. It's a special movie. I'm just wondering, it's funny. And I mentioned that I watch The Exorcist every Halloween. Some would say a very different movie, yet perhaps not so different. Maybe there's connections there. I don't know. But I so much I want to talk about. I wanted you to talk a little bit about William Friedkin, because from what I understand, you and him looked at artwork to prepare for that film and different paintings. Is this true? And it just fascinated me how you folks prepared for that picture.
Yeah, he arranged for us to go to the Metropolitan Museum on a day that it was closed. And we walked through the museum together looking at all these fantastic paintings and stood in front of them for a long time and relating to them. Now, that poster that for the movie with the Exorcist standing outside looking at the building and the light, that was taken right from, I'm not going to remember the painter's name now. I'm so embarrassed.
Is it Magritte?
Yes, Magritte. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a Magritte painting, and we stood there and saw it. And Billy is an extremely educated, and developed man, and he's the score of that movie. I think is one of the most beautiful scores ever for a movie. And there were so many things I learned from Billy, and we worked very well together. He's a master.
He is a master. Talk a little more about that, because a lot of people, he's deeper than one. He's also, as you know, a great raconteur. He can really talk. He has stories, and he loves to. Billy Friedkin is known for his storytelling, right? And but I'm just wondering. You said that it was very erudite. What were some examples of what he brought to the set, where you can see that learning and that kind of the way he approached the film that would perhaps a lesser director or someone else wouldn't have, if you follow my question? Example of that.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that I could say that, because if that were true, it would jump out. It wouldn't be part of the organic filaments of the what you're looking at on the screen.
Yeah.
It's not like anything is referred to in any way.
Yeah.
It's just the depth of not only experience but knowledge and art. He has an incredible eye,
Mm-hmm.
and also he's a very bold filmmaker. I mean, you don't boss him around.
Yeah.
I just love talking to him. We talked a lot
Mm-hmm.
before and during the film. He's very inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
I can't give you any examples at the moment. None are coming to mind.
Well, you've said quite a bit, because I think it's true that when an artist, I know I'm a musician, I think when an artist creates something, of course you can't pick things out. It has to be holistic. It all has to work together. But I guess I was just thinking about, of course you might have a director who doesn't have that, and I guess it might be reflected probably in the.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it is. It's more. It's more ordinary if they don't have that. It's like. I'm thinking of classical music that. It's like if you're listening to a symphony, it's all one piece, and yet if you're skilled enough, you can attune your ear to individual instruments or segments of the orchestra.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between an educated listener and an uneducated listener. So, he had that kind of depth of vision and hearing.
I mean, I like the fact on that film that you defended a certain ending. I know. Do you want to talk a little bit about the changes of the ending? You wanted to have a certain dimension, and if you recall about, I think the lines, or you had some input, or he did, about the meaning.
I don't know what
about the meaning of The Exorcist. There was a discussion in your memoir. You discussed a little bit about the line. You changed some of the lines because you wanted to emphasize the positive aspect of what she has undergone. But
I don't remember it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't remember it now. I must say that I always contribute to the script if it's needed and if it's allowed. I don't just say I'm going to say it this way, but I make suggestions, and very often they're accepted. And Billy was very good about that. But the script was based on a book, so it was pretty solidified. What the script was going to be. I do remember what you're talking about, but I can't remember exactly what it was. There was something that was too negative at the end, and I asked for it to be changed. But I'm not sure what that was now.
Well, it's the
I have to go back and look it up.
Well, according to you, it's the question of good and evil, and that it's the movie is proof that good is real, and that good can prevail, obviously, and that I think that it was a more cynical thing that Blatty had written, where your character says, "Well, I've met the devil, I know the devil," and you said this has got to change, because for the movie to mean something, there has to be this. Anyhow, without getting too involved in it, I thought that was interesting. It's the subject of Lee Strasberg is such a big subject, and he was such a formidable man. How would you, if someone asked you about you when you first met him or studied with him, what comes to your mind way back when, and that?
I'll tell you what comes to mind. I was being interviewed by him at his apartment in his home. And he said, "What kind of music do you like?" And I said, "I'm a classical music fan." He said, "What's your favorite piece of music?" And I said, Grieg's Concerto in A minor.
Wow.
And he said, "What pianist?" And I said, "Walter Gieseking." And I saw this look of approval on his face. And I felt so relieved, like I had passed a major test in life, you know. I didn't understand yet what a fantastic music lover he was. And he would, you know, have some of us over and play particular concerts for us, and would listen to music in what was called his music room. So I felt that first meeting I had just lucked into, you know, I had the right answer. He was a serious man. I mean, he was like a theologian of theater, you know. He had such a profound understanding and love and appreciation of what theater is and what it does and what it can be and what it should be.
Wow.
So he was such an inspiration to me, not just in acting, but I had never met anybody quite like him that was as deep and as skilled and as erudite with a work ethic. And it's really from him that I developed my own work ethic, which is really just having the highest regard possible of what it is you do. And I wish you could see my puppy right now. She's just run in the kitchen and got a shopping bag. So she took one look at me, and now she's running into the other room where I see she's tearing up tissue and paper all over the floor. So I'm walking as I'm talking to see what other damage she's done. So, you know, it was from him that I deepened my appreciation of, how do I say this? The importance of the theater and the importance of dedication and commitment. I had been, you know, I had been an actress who worked for, I would say, almost maybe between 12 and 15 years. I had a career,
right? But
I had never studied acting.
Wow!
I just did it. You know, the first audition I got was for a lead on Broadway, and I got the part.
Oh, wow.
And you know, I was getting by on that level of work.
Yes.
But at a certain point, I realized that there was another level that I didn't know how to get to, and that he was the leader of that. So I went to him, and sure enough, it changed not just my approach to work, but my approach to life, and made me, I can't say made me a more serious person, because I was serious, but I just didn't have the pathway to another dimension of understanding. I'm just totally indebted to him. I don't know who I would have been if I had not found my way to him.
Everybody needs an anchor in life. You, me, just everybody. Anchor made this whole show possible. I'm immensely grateful to them. You too can use Anchor to make your own shows and create your own vision. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Yeah, I guess you could say he's one of those visionaries or in the arts that revolutionized, when you say the arts in general and acting. And it's very rare that one person, I guess, like, you know, comes and does that. It's really something.
Well, there was only one of him.
Yeah.
You know, he was truly a master. And to be able to study any art form with a master is one of the greatest gifts that can happen to an artist of any kind.
I'm thinking of also Peggy Fury, right?
I did go to Peggy Fury, yeah.
Peggy Fury is also, I think, underrated. A lot of people may not know her name, but what was her contribution to teaching acting? And
Well, she was a wonderful actress herself. And of course, she was Actors Studio. She was, all part of that circle of people who were active at the studio at that time. And she was an acting teacher. The reason why I went to her is she had classes in the same building Lee did. Mm-hmm. I'm not even sure about what it was in the same room. But at Lee's, you had to sign up to do a scene, and there was a long waiting list. And I felt like I wasn't getting a chance to get up enough. So I went to Peggy's at the same time just so I could act more often. Mm-hmm. And she was also a very interesting teacher. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's within the same stream, so the approach to the work is similar. But it just gave me, once I found the kind of work that I was being led to do, I wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. I wanted to, because it's so important to practice your art form. Horowitz in his 80s was still practicing 88 hours a day, every day.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're an actor, you can't practice because you need an audience and a stage. You can't do it at home. So the classes are a way that you can get that, or the Actors Studio, which is not classes necessarily, but it's a place to go work. So I was very determined to get into the studio and to learn how to do this deeper level of work, which I did with both Lee and Peggy. And I studied, when I went to California, I studied with the studio and a very good teacher. Had wonderful classes.
A name comes to mind, Paul Mazursky.
Uh-huh.
Wonderful director. And you were in two, Perry and Tonto and Alex in Wonderland. Any thoughts on Mazursky as a director and writer?
Well, he was wonderful for many reasons. And one of the main ones is that he had been an actor. And a director who has acted is a different kind of being than a director who's been outside the art form rather than in it. And so he knew the process. He was very funny. He was smart and fun, and we became friends. Mm-hmm. I used to see him quite a bit, he and his family.
Yeah.
Alice in Wonderland, I thought, was a wonderful movie.
Oh, yeah.
Again, it wasn't a successful movie, but it had a lot of interesting things in it and about it. Harry and Tonto, I forgot that Paul directed that.
Well, you play Art Carney's sister, who runs a bookstore. Daughter, I'm sorry.
I think daughter.
Sorry,
yeah.
daughter.
An interesting story about that. I was on the Jackie Gleason show when it was a live variety show.
Wow.
When I first came to New York, I believe it was 1956.
It was.
And Art was on doing The Honeymooners.
That's right.
One of the great experiences of my life was to go down to that theater every Saturday and sit through the rehearsals and then do the live show with Jackie. And
hey, do you mind talking for just 5 minutes about that experience of doing this Jackie Gleason and what, just anything that comes to mind about that? It's amazing to me that
Jackie at that time had a series of characters he did. So he did these skits with different characters. there was Joe the bartender and the poor soul and some other ones, and then the honeymooners and the Art Carney and Dane Meadows.
Yeah, Audrey Meadows, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jackie didn't come to the rehearsal. We rehearsed all day. It was a Saturday. And he always had Frank Sattenstein, the director, would stand in for Jackie. And then when it came to his 5-minute stand-up routine at dress rehearsal, one of the other comics in town, like Jackie Leonard or Jack Carson, would come in and do the stand-up routine that would, when it was the live show, be Jackie's, just for the timing. So
wow.
There were a lot of girls on the show. You know, there were the June Taylor dancers, and then there were the Here We Go girls, and Here We Go, they opened the show. And then there were the group that I was, which was just almost like a showgirl. We were the tie-in between the show and the commercial. So it would go from a skit to one of us, and we would be in some costume and say something funny and introduce the commercial. So that was 1956. So in 1974, Art Carney won for Harry and Tonto, and I won Best Actress for Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
That's right.
But I didn't go to Hollywood for the Oscar ceremony because I was on Broadway during the same time next year.
Yeah.
So I came in to the theater the next night, and the doorman said, "I'm holding a call for you." So there was a phone on the wall. This was before, we had cell phones or anything. A phone on the wall and the receiver hanging down. I picked it up and said hello. And Jackie Gleason's voice said, "Well, the alumni did pretty good last year." That was the first I'd talked to him. This is 1974, since they did the show in 1956. So that was fun.
I mean, you deserve it. I mean, that was quite a year, 74. That's actually one of my favorite Scorsese pictures, I must say.
Oh, yeah. I love that
wonderful picture.
Yeah.
What comes to your mind about that shoot and that style of working and what you folks were doing on that film?
The way it came about, I've told it many times, I don't think I need to tell it again, how I was shooting The Exorcist and John Kelly was looking at the dailies and wanted to do another picture with me, and I found this script, or my agent did, and brought it to them, and they bought it. And then I looked for a new, exciting director, and Francis Coppola suggested Marty, and I met, and I chose him. He was a brand new director at that time, but I saw Main Streets and loved it. So we started working together, and his working style is so creative, is all I can say. I had this feeling like any time that I approached the set, like I walked inside where the cameras were aimed, it felt like a boxing ring. And it was the creative area. And now we were going to mix it up. And we did. It was always the script as the basis. And very often we did the scenes just as written, but there were also times when we took off and played, and something came alive that then got, shot. It was fun. It was such fun. I mean, that's always hard work when you're making these long hours and all that, but God, it was fun. But being creative is fun,
Well, how many times have you been able to do that where there was improvisation or probably was a bit, I'm guessing, unusual for a lot of films, right? I'm guessing. I don't know, but
it depends on the director.
Yeah.
some directors love improvisation and others don't. They want to stick to the script exactly. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes it's a mix. You start out doing the scene, but then something happens while you're shooting the scene, and you respond to it, and you're inside the story, so you respond as character, and something occurs that ends up being in the movie. Very seldom do you go on a set and you're improvising and they're shooting a totally improvised scene.
Right.
That doesn't happen too often because, things have to match and they have to go from the long shot to the close up to the two shot. But there's a feeling of improvisation in the rehearsal. And something happens in rehearsal and then that becomes part of what gets shot. There was a lot of that in Alice.
Mm-hmm. Well, that wasn't the first time that you made a choice on the basis of somebody's first feature, right? Because I understand that in Requiem for a Dream that you liked the movie Pi, and that's what made you decide to say yes to that film. Is that correct? Or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They sent me the script. I read that script and I said, who's going to want to see this depressing film? And
yeah.
My agent at the time, who became my manager afterwards, said, well, before you say no, look at a film called Pi. Mm-hmm. And I looked at Pi for I think I would guess 4 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I went, okay, I get it. The guy's an artist. He's a poet.
Yeah.
So I said yes, not knowing what I was what I was in for. It was a very difficult film to shoot. It was wonderful. I mean, it was, difficult because of what I had to do. Very well organized. Mm-hmm. But I loved doing it. I loved working with Jaron. He's so smart and so creative. They all are. I mean, good directors, really.
Well, when you say the word poet, I think of Alan Renee in Providence. I don't know why. It's such an unusual film.
It's very unusual. Yeah. He does something no other director ever did, which most directors shoot the film and they shoot, many different angles, and then they go to the cutting room and they cut it all together the way they want it. Mm-hmm. But Alain René we rehearsed, and when we rehearsed, we locked it down the way it was going to be and the way it would be shot. He would decide then and then go through the script and edit the film on paper so that anything that wasn't going to be, any angle that wasn't going to be in the film, he didn't shoot. So, if a portion of the scene was going to be on me, then he wouldn't shoot John Gielgud or Dirk Bogarde, one of the other actors. Mm-hmm. I've never worked with a director who shot like that. That was unique to him. It's a very interesting experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think it pays off in the film, right? I think there's something to that is what makes the film unique, wouldn't you say? To some extent.
Yeah. I don't know. Each one of these films are such a full and unique experience. Each one is different. The setting is different. I mean, that whole film was shot in a deserted French chateau. We were in France in this empty chateau. My dressing room was the master bedroom with a fireplace, and the building wasn't heated. And it was cold. We would be out shooting, and it would be cold. And one day, I wasn't in the scene, and John Gielgud and Dirk Bogarde were, and maybe Elaine Stritch, David Warner, somebody else was in it.
Oh my goodness! That's such a.
And I went around in the woods around the edge of the chateau and collected wood and to my dressing room and lit a fire in the fireplace. And when John Gielgud came in from the cold, I invited him into my dressing room to sit in front of the fire. And I put a blanket on his lap because he was really cold. And then somehow or other, I don't remember if he asked me or I thought of it, but there was some brandy in his dressing room, which I went and got and brought it on a little tray and served it to him. And he started telling me stories, and I sat on the floor near the fire in the fireplace, and as he sipped his brandy, he told me stories, and it just seemed like a scene that could be happening in that house. Like we were not actors making a movie, but we were somehow serving my father or whoever he would be by the fireplace, serving him brandy. It was like a little flash of time. We went into another time period. It was very beautiful. I treasure that moment.
Well, you yourself taught acting. I'm very interested in your memoir. You said that you taught workshops on acting as a spiritual discipline. And of course, I find that most interesting. Do you mind talking a little bit about that subject at all when you're approaching those workshops?
I don't remember saying that. I wonder what I meant. You know, it's a spiritual discipline in that if you do it right, you're moving your consciousness into another human being's consciousness. You're embodying someone else. And in order to do that, you must have empathy. And you find in yourself the empathy to feel what another human being is feeling and understand where that feeling is coming from. And I write a whole biography of every character I play.
Oh, interesting.
I want to know where they grew up, who their parents were, where they went to school. You know, what makes them be the way they are. And once you do that, once you find yourself moving into the emotional and organic space of another human being, it ignites in you a kind of ability to identify with your species. You know? Yeah, the humanity.
In this together. Yeah.
Well, not only are we all in it together, I love that phrase, I think, in Christianity that it says, I am one cell in the mind of God. And, you know, the idea that we are individual beings, it seems like we're individual beings living in an atmosphere or a place. But in fact, we're part of the biosphere.
That's right.
That's the same realization as another way of saying I am one cell in the mind of God. We're just one part of the whole living covering of planet Earth. You know, we're all growing out of the Earth. We are the biosphere. So, you know, to not take care of our planet is a kind of suicide. You know.
I appreciate you saying that very much. Is there other things that come to your mind you'd want to talk about? Other plays you've been in, or Horton Foote, or memories, or anything it's your decision? Anything else that you want to?
Nothing specific is coming to mind in terms of my career, except that I'm very grateful to be 88 years old and still working as much as I am.
Excellent.
And there was a time when I didn't take care of myself. When I was young, you know, I was pretty wild. I drank and smoked dope and ate indiscriminately, smoked cigarettes. actually, Ralph Roberts, the actor I was talking about, who was my masseur, he started me exercising. And the first thing he had me do was walk. And I could walk from the house to the garage without panting.
Oh.
And then every time he came to give me a massage, we would walk first, and it would just be maybe another foot each time. And within a very short time, I was walking a mile and feeling the smoke in my chest, which helped me stop smoking. And then one by one, I gave up all of my bad habits. First hard liquor, and then I was only drinking wine. And one day I gave that up. And cigarettes first, and meat. I gave up meat. And I just, dropped those things one by one so that I exercise and I eat well. And I feel so healthy and so grateful that the people in my life that I've encountered that have led me into this place where I can be 88 years old and still out walking a mile or two.
I mean, that's so beautiful. I mean, I'm so you're 88, and I have to ask, what is your regimen today, if I may ask, or what do you say? I'm going to do this no matter what, in terms of is your daily life, or?
Well, it's never exactly the same because I'm in a lot of different circumstances. Like, for instance, if I'm doing a play, I always meditate before I go on stage. I come to the theater an hour and a half early, and I'm dressed by an hour before going on stage, and then I meditate for a half hour. And then when they call half hour, I'm ready to get in character and prepare for my entrance. Now, do I meditate every day when I'm not doing a play? No. I sit quietly. I listen to music. I look out the window at the trees. I'm pretty careful to not get too wrapped up in the news, which I can easily become addicted to. Or, just be filling my, please be quiet. Filling my head up with outer stuff, but taking time to go inward.
Yes.
Whether it's in meditation or just listening quietly to music or however. And I walk.
Yes.
I do long, and I have a trainer 3 times a week.
Oh.
I go to lift weights and all of that.
That's beautiful. I mean, that's so inspirational. I mean, I think a lot of our listeners might love hearing that because, you're doing something right. I'll tell you. Are there?
It really pays off to take care of yourself. When you're young, you don't think about that so much, but at a certain point, when you start realizing time is passing and you're getting creaky, it's a good thing to pay attention to your body and your inner life too. I had a lot of therapy. I was a mess when I was, by the time I was 21, I was an emotional mess. So thank God for therapy. I learned how to get in and examine my programming and do some programming,
Yeah.
I think we all have the obligation to reprogram ourselves so we can be conscious and be the best person we can possibly be. Instead of reactive,
Ellen Burstyn, this has been a beautiful occasion, and I feel so honored and blessed that you come on our show to discuss these matters. And even good things come to an end. And I don't like saying goodbye. Is there anything you want to say before goodbye?
Yes. I like that line. I said it on a CBS morning show the other day.
Mm-hmm.
You may not always be nice, but you must always be kind.
Oh,
You know,
that's
you
interesting.
can't always be nice, but you can always be kind. And I think that's important. I think kindness is one of the most important things to focus on in life, because I think it's healthy for yourself and everybody around you.
Mm. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your kindness. And I enjoyed this very much.
Well, thank you for asking me on. It was lovely talking to you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
I don't like goodbyes, so I'll see you soon, folks. Thank you.